إذا كنت من المتابعين الجدد اشترك الآن في القناة ليصلك الجديد بالضغط على الزر الأحمر أسفل القناة مع تفعيل الجرس، ولا تنسوا دعم المقطع بلايك.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here at the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum representing my country. Under the visionary leadership of Professor Schwab, this gathering has become the foremost event in the world to address global and regional challenges. It shows what can be achieved through common action, common purpose, and common resolve. And it is a venue for serious conversation about how to achieve our most aspirational goals. No one in this room, ladies and gentlemen, however, will be surprised when I say candidly that my country is going through really difficult and tough challenges. Protesters, mostly young Iraqis, have been demonstrating in the streets for nearly 4 months, putting their lives on the line to demand change. They have deep desires and demands for economic opportunities and for a homeland, and to have their voices heard and answered. At the same time, escalating regional conflict is threatening our sovereignty. We are truly in the eye of the storm. However, I have confidence that Iraq can rise to these challenges rather than fall prey to them. We can still emerge a better, stronger, more cohesive, and more prosperous country. In my speech to the United Nations in September, I laid out a vision of hope and prosperity for the future of Iraq and the Middle East, while recognizing the fragility of our hard-won stability and security at the time. We had much to be hopeful about. The scourge of Daesh had been defeated thanks to the sacrifices of Iraqi forces, the Iraqi military, Hashd al-Sha'bi, Peshmerga, and other units, and with the support of the international community. Iraq stood on the threshold of a new era, one where internal wounds could finally heal, where we could finally move past decades of wars, sanctions, and atrocities, and where we could work collectively towards economic and social vitality that Iraqis so desperately deserved. My vision then, and still is now for Iraq, that sits at the heart of the Middle East, is to be a force for stability and a bridge for a greater economic integration in the region. However, escalating tensions between Iran, Gulf countries, and the United States over the past months have reminded us that our ambitions remain vulnerable to politics of conflict beyond our control and to unwelcome foreign interferences. We truly, by definition of our own interest, need to seek good relations with all, and we have no interest in being dragged into conflicts not of our own choice or making. If our neighbors and our allies remain at loggerheads, our sovereignty is not respected, and our territory is used as a battleground, then we cannot hope to achieve our own agenda of change and reforms. Iraq owes a debt of gratitude to the international coalition led by the United States, especially for the military and economic support that it provided in the fight against ISIS. The military coalition that the United States led was instrumental in helping the Iraqi forces to emerge victorious in that important battle. But Iran also played a pivotal role in the war against ISIS, and we share long-standing ties of geography, of water resources, of economy, of culture, and of religion with Iran. Iraq's relations and interests are so inseparably bound to the Arab depth. And needless to say, to Turkey also, which is our northern neighbor, is of major consequence to our interest. Iraq's geopolitics is rather interesting and challenging and vital, to say the least. It is not in our interest to choose to ally with one at the expense of others, so long as our sovereignty and independence is respected. For the Middle East to become stable, no country should seek to dictate to Iraq whom we should have relations with and how. Our policies and our diplomatic and economic ties must be driven by our own national interests, not by those of others. Iraq's sovereignty and stability should be the common interest for our neighbors and for the international actors. And we should not be penalized for protecting our sovereign interest or seeking to strengthen our military independence. The recent call by the Iraqi parliament for the withdrawal of US troops from our country is not a sign of ingratitude or hostility. Rather, it is a reaction to what many Iraqis see as violations of their country's sovereignty. This very crucial issue will have to be resolved through dialogue and by accepting that at the heart of this dialogue must be Iraq's sovereignty and enduring stability. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to argue that security and prosperity in Iraq will not be possible unless the Middle East as a region finds a way to move beyond the instability and the conflicts of today. The ravages of relentless violence and confrontation bring nothing but suffering to our people, robbing them of the futures they deserve. I still believe, despite the odds of the day, that Iraq can be the catalyst for positive change. It is not just that the country has, since Mesopotamian times, been the cradle of civilization and the melting pot of different faiths, sects, and ethnicities. Few countries have faced the horrors of war, of violent repression, of chemical attacks, and mass graves and sanctions, and of sectarian and ethnic bloodshed as mine has. And few crave peace and stability more. These bitter experiences have taught us that despite our differences, there is more that binds us together than keeps us apart. The protesters are yet another sign of this. Their patriotism, commitment to Iraq is demonstrated daily in the streets of Baghdad. We have shared dreams and mutual interest in cooperating and achieving those dreams. Crucially, we have learned that we can only achieve these dreams if we are united in a common aim and with a common purpose. This is a lesson for our region as well. Prosperity depends on eradicating extremism and teaching inclusiveness. It depends on building bridges, not slamming doors. Regional frameworks for security and economic and commercial cooperation that provide an avenue for political dialogue and dispute resolution is needed. We should seek to find our own solutions to our own problems. This is what young Iraqis in their thousands are demanding in peaceful protest on the streets of Baghdad and other cities, which they began nearly 4 months ago. It is devastating and painful and even shameful that acts of violence by outlaws has led to the death of over 600 innocent peaceful protesters, mostly young people, as well as many security personnel. Needless to say, I condemn these crimes in the strongest terms, and the perpetrators, sooner or later, will have to be dealt with in accordance with the law. Justice and security are the basis of a state and a society, of a nation. Peaceful protest is a fundamental right. Young Iraqis are protesting for a better life, a homeland, more jobs, improved services, an end to crippling corruption that has blighted the country for far too long. I hope I'm genuine with myself and with you when I say I want the same for them. They want an Iraqi nationhood to be inclusive, not divided according to communal identity. They want a democratic political system and a fair electoral law, which we have recently passed, that can ensure free and fair elections. This is a generational shift that reflects a yearning for something better, something more. This will not be an easy process, nor can it be achieved overnight. We certainly need to restore Iraqis' trust in their government and to re-examine our laws and our constitution to see how they can be made to renew and strengthen the bonds between the Iraqi leadership and our people and our communities. We also need to establish the conditions for sustained economic growth and to create jobs for our young and the rapidly growing population. Youth unemployment is already rampant and will only get worse if we do not provide our young people with the education and skills they need to succeed. 65% of Iraq's 38 million people are under the age of 30. Iraq has the highest fertility rate in the Middle East, and its population will grow by 1 million per year over the coming decade. These demographic and economic realities cannot be denied or dealt with by the status quo. The Iraqi state cannot do this on its own. The public sector is already strained, and we need to boost our still nascent private sector and look to those gathered here today to do their part by bringing foreign investment and skills to Iraq. We understand that we have a crucial role to play in making this reality. We need to become a country where Iraqis and foreigners have the confidence to invest for the long term and where the private sector feels empowered. As such, we have established legal and regulatory foundations to protect investors and liberalize markets. Needless to say, corruption needs to be combated. This is the political economy of conflict and instability. Good governance and rule of law needs to be established in practice, and many other reforms that are needed in order to move beyond the present impasse. I have to say, we have benefited throughout these difficult times from the guidance and the influence of Marja'iyya in Najaf, especially His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Sistani, whose leadership in these difficult and challenging times have been most helpful to Iraq and to encourage tolerance and peace and commit to reforms. And I very much hope that, speaking for all, that we hope that he will have speedy recovery from his recent surgery. Najaf historically has been the center of gravity for moderation, tolerance, and communal coexistence. And their role has been absolutely important in recent times. The reconstruction and restoration of the areas destroyed in the fight against ISIS remain a priority. But if we are to achieve our potential in the long term, our ambitions must go far beyond that. We need new ports, highway networks, railways, airports, many, many other things. And many of you here, no doubt, will be thinking, the country is in this state of conflict. We are in the eye of storm, and we are still thinking and enumerating the kind of projects and the reforms that Iraq needs. While focusing on the problems of today, we really need to offer the hope of what is needed in order to really provide the Iraqis with what they deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you with these final thoughts. As I have said, these are tough times for Iraq and for the region. I submit to you stabilizing Iraq, resolving Iraq's fundamental political crisis and the crisis of governance, establishing the sovereignty and protecting the independence and sovereign decisions of Iraq should become crucial to the stability of the entire Middle East. For this is crucial to eradicating extremism and can become, by virtue of geopolitics, the bridge that can unite the Middle East through common projects of infrastructure, job creations, and trade instead of continued conflict. As I look around this audience, I see many friends and allies who I know you share our vision, but I also know many of you are disappointed. For Iraq is yet from attaining its potential. Iraqis are yet to attain the minimum of what they deserve in peace, good governance, a decent quality of life, and to be able to enjoy the resources that Iraq has. We know we have no option but to persist and to make sure that Iraq is out of the present crisis and hopefully in the direction that we all aspire to and what the Iraqis deserve. It's going to be a tough challenge, but I count on the help of the international community, of our friends in this important event to make sure that Iraq is really restored, peaceful, sovereign, independent, at peace with itself and at peace with its neighbors. And thank you very much.
إذا كنت من المتابعين الجدد اشترك الآن في القناة ليصلك الجديد بالضغط على الزر الأحمر أسفل القناة مع تفعيل الجرس، ولا تنسوا دعم المقطع بلايك.